attention. It starts from the foundation. Everybody needs somebody.
Everybody needs some love.
You turn a blind eye and care nothing less. Say it's just business, all about the money. You are so unbothered as long as they pay. Say it's just business, all about the money. You know they're on a fast lane, but you've got business to run. So you look away the other way.
It concerns you. It a kill love, it a kill dreams. It a land people for jail. War against drug abuse.
I don't want gutter water, I go fight it.
I can't stop it.
I can stop it, I can leave it all.
I can't stop it, oh, I can't stop it, oh, I lie. I can't leave it, oh, I lie. I can't leave it, oh, I lie. Rock go shot in my life. I can't stop it, oh, if I sit down, they do nothing. I can't leave it, oh, I lie. I don't go wait until they want me. I don't go wait until it pass.
Please pay attention. It starts from the foundation. Everybody needs somebody.
Everybody needs some love.
You turn a blind eye and care nothing less. Say it's just business, all about the money. You are so unbothered as long as they pay. Say it's just business, all about the money. You know they're on a fast lane, but you've got business to run. So you look away the other way.
It concerns you. It a kill love, it a kill dreams. It a land people for jail. War against drug abuse.
I was the head boy in my primary school, senior prefect and best graduating student in my secondary school, but drug abuse almost ruined my life.
I was on an average of 2 grams of cocaine per day.
I was taking 8 ampoules of pentazosine daily.
European shisha, cocaine.
I became a user, a dealer, and a gangster.
I saw other users drowning. I knew I didn't want to be like them, but I was already trapped.
My family disowned me.
My employment was terminated.
I sold my car, sold my house. I'll go out well-dressed and return shoeless, shirtless in exchange for drugs.
I was seeing things that were not real, and I once stabbed myself because I felt something crawling under my skin.
I contacted NDLEA and started therapy.
I spent 3 months in therapy.
I spent 8 months.
It's easy to relapse, but your mind has to be stronger than the cravings.
Drugs does not love you. You are not the one using drugs. Drugs are the one using you. Say no to drug abuse.
at some parts of there anyway, not
Okay, alright then. Alright. I'll just try to stay within the context of yeah, sports as substance abuse. Chess is a sport, a mind sport, and there's a lot of like misconceptions that people have about the game, right? And I think one thing that we really fail to like understand is how powerful it is, especially for young people, right? So I'll tell a bit of my own story, how I got into chess, and a few of my experiences from some of the slum communities that I've worked with, so we get like a better idea of like the scope of like impact, like using chess as that disruptive tool. Right, but I never got sucked up in that lifestyle because something happened, right? I remember after my primary school education, after primary 6, I had to drop out of school for 2 years because we grew up in a very difficult place and my parents just couldn't afford to keep paying tuition. So I had to drop out of school, start learning how to like fix stuff, just do something, to support the family. I was 10 at the time. So I was at home for 2 years. I didn't go to school. So there was this barber shop I would always go to play video games, and on one of these days I saw him bring out a small plastic chess set, and I never seen a chessboard before. So I was fascinated by the way the pieces were carved, and it just really ignited that curiosity in my young mind. and I wanted to like understand how to play it. But I would always say, I was too young, and but I just kept pestering. Would just tell me to watch, right? So I would just watch them play. His friends would come around. Then one of his friends, he was, I think, the national champion last year. So they would come around. I would just watch them play, and so. So, but for me, right, chess gave me like exposure for the first time. I go to like meet other children in other places whenever we went out for tournaments. So it really began to help shape my understanding of people and places, right, beyond the confines of my environment. So that social, like that power that it has to connect people, across all, social backgrounds, the way it like transcends the challenges of like disability, societal stereotypes, color, age, socioeconomic background, whatever. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor, you're tall or you're old or young. Anyone can play chess and excel at it, right? Which I did. I won my first trophy when I was 11, and my parents were really proud, and it really, really did. Really, really did a number on my mindset and on the way I saw the world. So that really young age, even though I was like surrounded by other young people that would get into cultism and drugs, I always knew that I wanted to be different, right? Because chess had helped like unlock the power of my mind, and it had shown me that I could also be intellectually inclined. So that like goes back to what I said about having an identity. So I wasn't just another kid growing up in a corridor or in the slums or in the ghetto, right? Or because my parents, were too poor to give us a lot of basic things. But I was the kid that had the ability to play chess, and I could do it really well. So it gave me that identity, and people judge me based on that premise. So I mean, fast forward to like going to college to Yaba Tech, and I kept playing. I went pro. I competed at the highest levels. I won a few tournaments, and I was ranked, I think, number 13 in Nigeria at some point. So chess changed my life. It helped set my life on a much different trajectory. It introduced me to a community of people that I would have typically never met, right? So after school, I had to make a decision on what I wanted to do. Right, I had this ambition that I was going to be a grandmaster and all of that, but that didn't work out because, to be a grandmaster or to be able to compete at the highest level, you'd have to travel, put in a lot of time and resources, right? But so at the time, it wasn't really an option for me because I was struggling, and, things got really difficult after school. So I gave up on that dream and decided to start teaching chess to children instead, right? So I did this between 2015 and 2018. I was working with a lot of private schools in Lagos, and I saw chess beyond just being a game or an after-school activity, but as an important educational resource. I'd done extensive research on how in countries like Armenia, China, Russia, chess was like a national legacy, and it was like a compulsory part of their curriculum. So I wanted to do the same thing here, right? Because I could help, build these cognitive abilities for children in their formative years. So I did it for 3 years, but I wasn't earning as much. So I quit, and I was planning to japa and escape this country then. But something happened in 2018 that gave me purpose. And a lot of that has led to like where I am right now. Right. And a lot of what informs my convictions, about the work that I do. In 2018, so we used to after I used to play the piano then in church. So after church, a lot of the guys that we played together, they used to go somewhere to smoke, right? I didn't smoke or NDLE, NDLE rather. So they used to go somewhere to smoke, but they wouldn't tell me because they didn't want me to know that they were going there to smoke, right? And so one day I insisted that I was going to go with them, right? And I went with them, right? So they used to call that place Lungu. So we just went there and we sat down. And so I was in a place, it was in Ikorodu too, but a place that wasn't too far from where I grew up, right? So people were just smoking, young people, children even, children were there smoking weed and they were just having conversations. And in that moment, I was just listening, right? I was listening to all the stories of crime, all the stories of this, all the stories of that. And I just had that moment of, that epiphany, right? It dawned on me that these children like me, right, they would never get to know what they can truly become, right? Because of the circumstances around their birth, the poverty of their parents. So they were not in school, right? They didn't even know that there was a world out there with so many opportunities for them, the internet. They didn't know any of that. As far as a lot of them knew, having a laptop or using the internet was to commit crime. I didn't know that there were these opportunities, for them to be able to earn a proper living and actually live a good life. And the reason for that is not because they don't want to choose to, but because life has chosen the script for them, right? They have become victims of this travesty that they know nothing about. They have become victims of this lottery of birth, where they were born to really poor parents, that don't even understand the value of education, right? So the children have been left to their own devices on the streets, right, to sort out themselves. I knew this and I wanted to do something about it. But I wasn't really in a position to do something about it because I was struggling myself. I didn't have a job and, things were not really right at the time. But I knew that, I had chess, right? I had this talent. I had stopped teaching chess then because I was trying to, travel and japa and all of that. But I just thought, I still had a few chess boards and I could devote some of my time, since I wasn't really doing anything, to teaching these children chess as a way to get them away, just take their minds off, having to use drugs, right? And that's the first step, right? Now, the only way they can express themselves, right, was to do drugs. And a lot of the reasons why people get into substance abuse is because of stress, or they just need an outlet, right, to express themselves, right? So for me, I saw chess as a way to give them a new way to find expression. Right? It was, instead of gathering together and just smoking mindlessly, you could actually gather together to play chess, right? And this time around, you're not doing something that harms you, right? You're doing something that helps you to think, right? That helps you to channel your thoughts in a positive way, in a way that can solve problems. So, I didn't know how chess was going to save them from poverty or all of that, right? But I knew it was going to give them an identity, just like I said, just like it gave me. So it was at that intersection between my own story and what I had the ability to do, right? I found a way to create meaningful change, right? So the next weekend, I came there with chessboards. Some of those children, I just called them together. At first, they were rebellious, right? But then chess is a very fascinating game. So the moment I brought out the sets, I could see the curiosity in their eyes, right? So something that I'd never seen before. So I started teaching them. I started coaching them, So I gave them a condition, right? When I saw that the game had really caught their interest, right? I told them that if you want to continue being a part of this, you have to stop smoking, right? And they just did, right? Because they couldn't imagine a world where they would have to stop learning chess, because of this, right? Although they didn't stop immediately. For them, it was like going from like smoking like 3 times to smoking maybe twice, then once, then eventually stop. So I gave them that liberty to like pace things properly, right? So, and that was how, the children started excelling at chess because, like I said, they had found a new way to express themselves. Now, people saw that, right? People started to see that, children that were once considered good for nothing, without any education, that can't even speak basic English, they were showing good aptitude for chess, right? People began to give them opportunities. So people would just reach out and be like, that kid, does he go to school? Is he willing to go to school? Like, yes. So through that medium, the children started getting like scholarship opportunities and they started going back to school. So chess became not just the end in itself, but a means to several ends, right? Those education, technology, mentorship, and all of that. And with time, taking drugs or smoking just became a thing of the past, right? That become refined, right? We would take them out for tournament, they will see other people, they will see other kids, and so a lot of that, began to like refine them and change their mindset over time, right? So that was how the Chess and Slums projects started in 2018, and it just evolved from there. We went to Makoko, then we went to Oshodi on that bridge, and I think I experienced that Oshodi on that bridge is what is most relevant, like, to this conversation. I remember the first time I really came out from my car and, came down to like interact with a lot of those guys. It wasn't like premeditated, right? So I was driving and one of my tires just, busted just right on top of the bridge. And a lot of those area boys just started running towards me, and at first I was like, hope these guys are not coming to like obtain me or anything, right? So they just came and they were like, what happened? I was like, my tire. They were like, they can help. So they just immediately took it out for me. They took it to the organizer and they pumped it and they brought it back. And I couldn't believe it, right? And these are guys that look very hard, and very disturbed, right? So I just said, thank you. Then I drove off. So the next thing, hi to them. Sorry, can everyone still hear me? Sorry, can't hear me now.
Yeah, we're getting you.
Okay, all right. So I decided to say hi to them. Then I saw them like smoking right under the bridge, and so I just went and I sat with them, right? And I told them that I wanted to do something, right, for the children amongst them. I wanted to teach them chess for a month. And they were like, what is chess, this. So I just showed them pictures and I told them to call the younger ones amongst them. So they now went to call them. So the younger ones were somewhere on the bridge smoking what we call para. They call it para. I don't know what it means in English, right? But they were there smoking para and they called them together and you could see a lot of them, their pupils were already dilated and, they could even speak coherently. So I introduced myself and told them that I wanted to teach them something, but just on one condition: they would need to stop smoking para. And they were like, they will try. So we just like took their names. So I remember on that day we took the names of like 50 of those boys. So the area boys are now like, what about them? So I think what we did here, for the area boys, a lot of the stocks. And I think this is something that, even as a society, this is something we should continue to think about in our engagement, with the lower class, with people like that. It's very easy to want to solve problems just using brute force, right? Or just trying to dismiss their own opinion or not regard them in any way. They are good for nothing criminals, right? I mean, that is the single story, and that is the way society has continued to stereotype them. But in some way, right, I understood that we're all just victims of a dysfunctional society, of a dysfunctional system, you know. And maybe for them, of course, for them it's a lot worse, right? And there's always a backstory to these things, right? And this was what made me understand the backstory to like some of these thugs and era boys being in that present situation and resorting to like drugs to ease the pain or to take their minds off, that circumstance, right? I remember one time when I was driving through Yaba and the traffic light stopped. A little kid just walked up to my car window and he was begging for money, right? And I mean, for most of us that drive in Lagos, I'm sure we've experienced this a lot of times, right? And he was begging, "Uncle, please, listen, I've not eaten." And it was a homeless kid, obviously, right? Some of them are the ones that are like wash our windows and all of that. So I didn't have any money, and I just ignored, right? So after the traffic light, I just drove off. But I couldn't stop thinking about that kid because I know that someday he's going to grow older, right? He's going to evolve into that era boy now that we now complain about. And that money that I didn't get from you while he was begging in traffic, right? When he now evolves and becomes a violent thug, he won't have to beg you for it. If he just brings out a gun or a knife, you would have to give it to him, right? So it was clear that a lot of those street kids that were neglected while they were younger, they were the ones that would now grow to become thugs and violent hoodlums, right? Because, to be able to survive on the streets, you need to become harder than your circumstance. You need to become harder than your reality, right? And that is why, they seem very heartless and violent, and that is why they resort to taking hard drugs, because they need to lose all of that innocence to be able to survive. That is why they take to joining cultism. And this is not just my own analysis. This is from actual conversations with hundreds of era boys and thugs that I had with them in our 7 months under that bridge at Oshodi, right? So it made me really understand the way they saw the world and the way they thought about other people, and why taking to hard drugs was the only option for them. So we selected the children and we wanted to do something to break that cycle, so the younger ones amongst them would evolve to become area boys. But we still needed to find a solution for the area boys. So what we now did, which I think was pretty phenomenal, was we made the area boys themselves. We made them Jamu, you be in charge of welfare for us. You, Dario, you be in charge of security, and you, Ramon, you be in charge of tables and chairs. You, Yusuf, you be in charge of making sure the kids brush every morning. And you could see the excitement on their faces. For the first time, they felt as a part of something that was bigger than them. This wasn't maybe some political person, selfish politician or desperate person using them as a tool, right, for his own selfish ambitions, right? For the first time, someone gave them a positive way, right, to channel their emotion and to help and to feel involved. And that is purpose. And that is very powerful, right? That we gave them the condition that you cannot smoke while we're having classes here, because now you're part of the project and you're an ambassador for chess and slums. They were like, no, wa'ala. So that was it. And that was how, for 7 months, we were able to train 50 children. And that was how Oshodi on that bridge, one of the most dangerous ghettos in Lagos, became a classroom for children to learn. And that was how, ultimately, we were able to help those 50 children find their place in the world again. And in all that time that we're there, we never lost a pencil. We never had any fight. This is a place where cultism and people have been killed and stabbed and all of that. But there was no single scratch. People from all over the world came to Oshodi on that bridge. Patrice Evra came to Oshodi on that bridge to learn how to play chess from the kids. The Canadian High Commissioner came to Oshodi on that bridge to sit down with area boys and talk to them and listen to them. Even the Royal Naval team, journalists from all over the world. It just became, a phenomenal story, right, of what was possible. Right. right? When you decide that if you want to take silver from a man, you can't just take it from him. You have to be willing to give him something better than that, right? You have to be willing to give him gold. So that was what we did, right? We wanted to take this from them, but we had to be willing to give them something that was better. And that too was just chess, right? And it became a way out for a lot of them. Now, that was my experience in Oshodi on that bridge, right? And it has been my experience, in some of the other communities I've worked, in, right? Substance abuse in Nigeria, especially on the street amongst area boys and thugs, is a global crisis, right? I mean, in the context of what we have to deal with here, right, it's more prominent among this homeless youth population, right? So there's an alarming increase in substance abuse on the streets. It's terrible, right? And we realize that our traditional approach to combating this problem has been met with very limited success, right? Because we're not really thinking deliberately about it. A lot of the correctional homes, for example, in Lagos, that they just, raid all these boys and go and dump them in. Even in the correctional homes, they sell weed to some of the children and some of those young people, right? This is a true story from my experience. So a lot of these approaches haven't really yielded any positive results, right? But what if you could think about it differently? What if you could really leverage the power of chess, right? Chess beyond just a game, right, has this deeply historic value, right? And a lot of research has gone into how it has the ability to improve mental and emotional skill. It fosters analytical thinking, problem solving, concentration, and decision making abilities. Now, by teaching the skills to these young people, especially this young homeless youth demographic, right, and help them overcome the challenges they face, it gives them an alternative way to find expression, right? Give them an alternative way, right, to express themselves instead of having to take to drugs, right? And a lot of the reasons why people even take to drugs in the first place is because they need to escape pain, stress, or some very difficult emotion that they can express, right? And you can imagine the level of hardship that some of these people have to face daily. So they just resort to substance abuse to numb themselves from their reality, right? But chess can provide an alternative outlet, and we've had great success, right, with our own project, right? And another important thing that it can also do is to build that social connection. Remember what I said earlier about how chess transcends and challenges a lot of stereotypes, right? I think one of the critical factors contributing to substance abuse amongst homeless youth is isolation and that lack of social support. They're very isolated, and society treats them with a lot of disdain, right? Chess can help bridge this gap by fostering those social connections and promoting that sense of belonging. And I can always say, help them find a place in the world again. Imagine that you are organizing chess tournaments every year in Oshodi on that bridge for the young people. And not just in places like that, maybe a lot of these shelters and rehabilitation centers, right? Because those are the places we really, really need to look to, where a lot of these vulnerable people are kept, right? So you're giving them an opportunity to interact with others, establish friendships and, find that important support system, right? That's another way, by building social connections, right? Boosting self-esteem, the confidence that comes with knowing that you now have the ability to do something, right? That sense of accomplishment, right? Imagine being a champion, winning a medal, winning a trophy, right? Some of the children that we trained in Oshodi and that have become champions now, right? You can't imagine them now going back to drugs. It doesn't even make sense. I immediately used to struggle a lot. One of the boys that, I think the boy that came second at the tournament, used to struggle a lot with drugs. But look at him now. He's a software developer, he's really good at chess and he's learning graphics design, right? He didn't even have to go through a lot of rehabilitation, psychologically and all of that. Just finding something that he was good at and he knew way to express himself just took him entirely out of that life, right? So a lot of these things, are why I think, chess can be a disruptive tool, right? But then it's not just one thing. It has to be an entire holistic approach to solving this problem, right? And I mean, these are just my thoughts. And before we can really, really challenge and do something meaningful, right? We need to really think deliberately about solutions, right? We need to think about them and not like judge the people that we are trying to rehabilitate outrightly. Because when we do that, we become a lot less objective, right? And from my experience, I know that brute force has never really been an effective way to solve a problem, right? So this is just one way to go about it from my experience. And I want to say thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to share this. I'll be happy to take any questions now.
Thank you very much, Tunde Onakoya, for, even though I would probably not have even expected more than, I think you over-delivered, because actually I was surprised that you thought we were just going to come here and take questions, but now you have actually made a very fantastic presentation with live experiences right inside your presentation. Thank you very much once again. Now, let's quickly, because I know we have quite a lot of questions in our DM, and I also know that I've seen quite a number of our veterans. Those are called senior members of this platform, of this space. Let me thank and welcome. I think, Loretta, I had to go and wake you up. I was just thinking about doing this morning, and I had to look for you. Thank you, Dr. Loretta, all the way from Chicago, Illinois. Thank you, our own very Mrs. Asiya Adamubio. Thank you, Obona Ohakwe. Thank you, our own veteran, John Ogunjimi. Thank you, our Zona Commander, Parabawa. Thank you, Dr. Kolo. Thank you, Commander in Castina, Bashir Ibrahim. Thank you, Engineer Nasifi Jibril. Thank you, Abdullah Sani Jibril. Thank you, Ali Sogumbi. Thank you, MD Ibrahim, and quite a host of others who would be probably recognizing some of you in batches. But let's stop at this point, because we have just barely 1 hour left on this space, and then we still have, I know apart from the questions that will be taken by Tunde Onakoya, we still have quite a number of those that would be asking questions on the recruitment exercise and what have you. Now, let me quickly, Loretta, would you want to take the first shot so that I give you that?
Absolutely.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Abafemi. Thank you, colleagues on the platform. And Tunde, I want to say thank you. Thank you. God bless you. I've been telling my husband I'm looking forward to when I can meet this guy, because I follow you on Twitter. I follow what you do. I'm a harm reduction, drug, substance abuse specialist here, even though I'm still a student. But the things you do amazes me, and don't be surprised that I follow you and I try to write some of your achievements and try to relate them with what my dissertation is going to look like. Thank you. I don't know. I mean, Mr. Femi, forgive me, but I mean, if you follow Tunde closely, if you actually see where he really started from and what he has achieved right now, is amazing. But I have a question. And let me also say that what you're doing should be replicated in similar and I'm as much as I can to people I come across with who are able to make those events happen. But one question that has been on my mind, and I've said that anytime I get the opportunity I'll ask you, will be how are you able to overcome being rejected by this community, knowing very well the context you're diving into, the people you want to engage with. When you met all the I'm referring to Adeyinka Wole, who is a chess guru in Nigeria thereabout. And I wanted to ask him about how you've been working organization in Nigeria. So from your discussion or your explanation this morning, it's clear that they are also a part of what you're doing. Now, for this locations in Korodu, Oshodi, how are you able to manage the community? How are you able to win them over? Because these are very tough communities. And I also know that people that are actually engaged in substance use They have one of the best brains. They are very innovative. They are very sound people, but they don't just have the opportunity. And we have seen situations where where people approach them and they are refused. They reject their innovations that they bring to the community. What's your success story? You talked a bit about it, but how did you really eat into the fiber of the community leaders who we know are full of extortion gimmicks? What did you do? Because when I see these kids on Twitter, when I see the news about it, like, how did this guy do it? You want to share a bit of that story so that we can further learn and further plan or think of replicating the same thing in other contexts or similar contexts. And finally, from me, I hope Mr. Bafemi can take me serious in this regard. I would really recommend that the agency to consider, working with Tunde as an NDLA ambassador. Not just to this young people, but to other communities that we are yet to penetrate like he has done. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Loretta. Let's your suggestion as far as it concerns NDLA is definitely under consideration. I'm sure we're starting from somewhere already with him. Let me leave Tunde to answer the other part of the question. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Loretta. Thank you for the kind words too. Okay, so I'm trying to answer this question in a very real way. So I'm not just like, doing word salads and all of that, right? So people really understand like what it takes and, the very practical ways in which you think about it. I think one thing that a lot of people would notice, like if you've been following the Chasing Slums project, is that the God is in the details of what we do. Every single thing that we do is very well thought out, like from making the fancy agbadas for the children to the fila to every single thing. Like everything was deliberately thought out, right? So to be able to do a project of that nature is very, very difficult, right? And that is why there are very few people that will be able to like achieve the same result, right? It's easy to have good intentions, right? But it takes a lot of courage to see it through to the very end, and a lot of planning, right? And a lot of even strategic, like a lot of like that planning from like inception to implementation to execution, it requires a lot of very deep strategy, right? So when we wanted to start out, right, we had identified that, okay, Ikorodu was a lot easier, right? Now, for every project like this, like the community entry strategy has to be different, right? And we spend a lot of time thinking about like our community entry strategy. For Ikorodu, it was a lot easier because I'm from Ikorodu, and, a lot of those guys in that area, like were my guys, right? So those guys that I said used to go and smoke there, they were my guys, so I just spoke with them. Right, and it was easier then. For Makoko, we just like spoke to the leaders, the ballet of the community. That was a lot more standard, right? Through the ballets, we were able to get to the parents, but for Oshodi, it was a different. There didn't know anyone there, and you know how Oshodi on average can be. You can't even pass there anytime from 8. You will definitely be robbed or something very bad would happen to you. Right, so I think the first thing that we did, right, first thing we considered rather was involving the police. And this is not a joke, like we actually went to the police station because we were afraid. We didn't just want to go there. We went to the police station to talk to the DPO and tell him that we want to do this. And even the DPO was asking us for bribe. So in my head it was like, we want to do something to like benefit this people, this place, and make a lot of your work easier. And you're still asking us to like settle you, and it just really, I just felt very discouraged. Because first of all, we don't even have money. Like everything that we wanted to use for the project was like life savings of people and a few people that had like supported us, and we knew it was going to cost a lot, right? To get chess balls, to get tables and chairs every day, to feed the children every day. And we're already like racking our heads about that. And now this person wanted us to like give him some money to be able to take us seriously or to give us security. So we tried to do that, and we just had to just ditch it and we went there directly, right? And when we went there, right, of course, the first thing was, well, they will accost you guys. In fact, they wanted to like break my phone because they thought I wanted to take pictures of them, that kind of thing, right? And this is where a lot of like deep wisdom comes in. When most people want to like stage their interventions in places like that, they go there and be very condescending to some of those guys, to some of those area boys, right? And of course, like, it's for your reasons are valid because they have no right to come and disrupt anything or to come and start asking you for money or to come and start challenging you, right? Because you're as much as a Lagosian as they are. So why do some people think that you need to pay them to be able to do anything? And I get how and why we can feel like that sometimes. And it can be very, very discouraging that you're there to do good for the community. And some people are saying until you settle them or this thing that it will scatter and disrupt it. So we knew that was going to happen, right? And we were ready for it. So when they approached me and they were like, oh, this is the... They wanted to get violent, right? I just toned it down a bit to just calm them down. And the way you speak in situations like this, it really, really does matter, right? You are not speaking as if you're better than them. You're not being condescending. But rather, you are letting them know that, in fact, you are one of them, right? I'm going to share a video. I'm just going to retweet the video maybe after this. So I think we recorded one part, on that first day that we went there to talk to the area boys, right? So we just let them know very softly that, no, that this thing, we're together, this. And more importantly, we made them a part of the project team. Now, I don't know if this can be replicated for other people, but it was a thing. We made t-shirts for them. I'm not kidding. Like, we made the same t-shirts that we made for our own team. We made it for them, and we gave them roles and responsibility. That was much bigger than giving them money or settling them on this thing. It was like, you know what? You guys can join us. This thing we want to do, that we'll do it together, right? And I think one thing about we humans, right? Because I spend a lot of time like reading about like psychology of humans, people, behavior, and all of that, right? Is that there's nobody, it doesn't matter how heartless or wicked or unreasonable that you are, there'll still be a way that someone is able to talk to you and reach you, right? But there's a method to it. For us, our method to it was making them feel as a part of something that we wanted to build together, right? In our planning, we also sat down or we talked about it, we asked them, we involved them, right? We didn't just think they were good for nothing or, the regular stereotype, a single story, which is correct about them, but it is not the only story, right? There's another side to them that you'll never truly be able to reach if you don't come down to their level, right? So we asked for feedback. Like, we don't want the renting of the chair to be too far from like the under bridge. So they suggested that there was this woman in Mafoluku that this, and so they were excited, and you could see it on their faces. And when we started announcing, we even made like a spectacle out of it. Oh, you all this, you'll be in charge of this thing. Let's clap for him. Hey, they celebrated. So and that was it. And that was how, in all the several months, we never had any issues with them, right? Because the people that were supposed to like disrupt this thing, we made them a part of the project. So they were the ones that not only protected us, right, but ensured that we could run the program seamlessly, ensured that all the children were there on time, ensured that they would even clean the place, pick out the dirt, sweep everywhere. Like, these are like hardened criminal stories that did this just because somebody, gave them that sense of belonging, right? And it just made me remember just something Mark Zuckerberg said, I think during his speech at Harvard. She said, I think when man wanted to go to the moon for the first time, I think the president then was it Ronald Reagan or Kennedy? I can't remember. So he went to NASA headquarters, right? And he saw a janitor cleaning. And he asked him, he said, what are you doing? Yeah. And the janitor, the cleaner, he said, I'm helping to send a man to the moon. And that was just very profound because he was contributing in his own little capacity by sweeping and making sure the facility was clean. But then, that wasn't his role, right? He didn't understand it as just his own small contribution. He understood it as a way to also like support the grand vision, which is to send man to the moon, right? So it didn't matter whether it was a janitor or whether it was one of the engineers. It was part of that building process to send man to the moon, right? And that is what purpose is. And every human wants to feel that sense of belonging, to know that they have a place somewhere. So that was how we were able to not just earn their loyalty, right? Made them feel deeply involved. And when the project even went viral, something else even happened. Like when the project went viral and everything, like people were calling the area boys to tell them, and you know, Nigerians can be very devious, to tell them that we were like using them to make money, or we were like using their stories to make money and all of that, and like hoping that they would like turn against us and become violent, right? But that never happened, right? Because we have built an important bond and trust with them, and they trusted us, right? So that was our own method to it, right? And I know for every community, like the way like you engage them, we were not there for the area boys, right? We were there for the children amongst them, but we still needed to go through those ones. And that is a Nigerian situation, right? Maybe a more brute force would have been to bring soldiers and police, but we didn't even have that resource, right? At the end of the program, you know, now that people had seen this side of them, right, that could be good. We rented apartments for all of them, right? Zlata is here. He was the one that drove every single one of them to their new apartment, right? For a year, we rented apartments. We even wrote to Vitafoam. They gave us furniture, and we furnished it for them, gave them mattresses and all of that. And so they don't live under the bridge again. All the 14 area boys that volunteered with us, and even one of them, Dario, the one that was like in charge of security, we got him a boss, right? And because he lost his job while he was volunteering with us, so we got him his own boss, and now, you know, he earns a living doing his own thing, and he would not become a tool in the hands of another person, but a hero of his own story, right? So that came with that reward, but they didn't even know it at the inception, right? But people saw that, and they saw the, you know, that genuine thing in what those people can become, right? So that was our own method to it. I don't know if you find that helpful, but yes. That's
absolutely helpful to me. Thank you so much. Your community entry is just spot on. Thank you very much. Well done.
All right. Thank you, Tunde. Thank you, Loretta. Let me quickly give. Okay, Agba Okunrinla, if you can hear me, please, can you unmute yourself and let's get your contribution before I go to our DM.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon to everybody. Yeah, good afternoon to everybody.
Go ahead. Not all of us are in the afternoon. Loretta that is talking, that spoke earlier is in the morning.
Okay.
US where she is. So,
okay,
anyway, never mind. Just go ahead, please. Yeah, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Thank you so much. Sunday, for being so courageous, and I really appreciate his support for bringing a hope to the youth, to the hopeless, because that's a wonderful job for him. Just like what Loretta said. So hopefully the NDLA will make Tunde one of the ambassadors, and that is going to push lots of things, and that is going to stop lots of drugs abuse here and there, because I can see Tunde now Tunde find it more easier to interact in the street, to talk to more people in the street, most especially those who don't even believe in themselves anymore. And sport as an alternative to substance abuse, that is one thing our government needs to do. For me, I believe the more, because now I think we have no, how would I put it? These days we don't have much employee in the country now, and I find so many people being depressed. And when someone is depressed, it is very easy to intimidate, like the kind of person you have around you. Like the way your guys used to say, So, like you taking some drugs is not the solution. Taking drugs is not the solution. There are a lot of things you can use. There are a lot of facilities.
Yes, Agbaokuri, can you still hear us? I guess we lost him. Okay. Thank you. I don't know if Tunde will want to say something to what he has said so that we move to DM to take some questions.
I'm not sure it asked the question. Maybe we can just move to the next one. Or maybe I didn't get it.
Okay, no, actually, he was still making a statement when we lost him. I think he's struggling with his network. Okay, let me quickly take this question from our DM. Actually, the person sent the 3-in-1 question. I don't know if you.
Hello, does anyone know where Starbucks comes from? Please.
To mute you or remove you, Adam Moloney, please, you have to remain muted until I ask you to speak. Okay, let me quickly take this question.
Okay, I'm very sorry.
There, please. Thank you. Okay. BT is asking, T-Crab, a professional volleyball player, is quoted, we need to bear in mind that what makes sport attractive also makes drugs and deviance appealing. Excitement, confrontation, risk, exhilaration, joy of celebration. End of quote. How do you structure your initiative to support your protests to not bend under the pressure? I think I should take it one at a time. Did you get that?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Yeah, today did you get? Okay, please, do you want to respond to that before we go to some others?
Oh, okay. All right. So, yes, of course, just like you rightly said, and it still goes back to what I said about, like, if you want to take silver from a man, you have to be willing to give him gold, right? So, a lot of the reasons why, like, substance abuse is a thing, right, is because of, like, the thrill that it gives, right? The escape from the pain, from maybe a difficult emotion, all of these things. So, sport can be, like, a great alternative to that, too. And if you look at, like, some of the, like, a few, like, people that have excelled at one sporting activity, for them, right, that sporting activity at first was an escape from something that they dealt with, maybe some sort of, like, emotional trauma. So it's just, like, nature abhors a vacuum, right? You can't just take something from someone and there would always be that gaping hole. There would always be that space. So what can fill up that space for that person? I mean, they say an ideal mind is the devil's workshop, Abi. So the way, like, we structure our own program to help these children, right? So we have, like, first, it's structured into three different components. Like, the first one is the church training in itself. The second one is the rehabilitation, and the third one is the reintegration. Right now, you're taking youth that have, like, become victims of, like, heavy substance abuse, right? Some of them even, like, crimes and a lot of, very terrible vices, right? You're taking them, right? A lot of them are very violent, are very rebellious. So the first thing, right, is you're introducing them to chess, right? You're empowering them. You're giving them something else to think about, right? You're taking their minds off the one thing that they've always known to survive. You're introducing something new, entirely different from what they've always known. You're giving them a more positive way to find expression, right? So that's the first phase of our program. We don't just do chess, by the way. We do mental maths, Even recently, we had like an artist come and train the kids, and so a lot of that was just to like fill their minds with something else, to help them begin to understand that they need a clear mind to be able to excel at this thing. So one of the kids was like, in chess. Like what he meant was that he didn't smoke that day because he needed his mind to be in the right place so he could win. He could beat his friends on that day. Like this was something that he just said on his own, right? And to me, it made me understand that he now saw reason, right, to not compromise his mind, because chess is a game that it's a highly cerebral game. It's a game that engages the mind, right? And you can't even afford to lose focus for a minute, right? Because you can make mistakes. So he began to saw the value of like making sure his mind, was in that space where he had absolute control over it, right? So a lot of that, there's like deeply like psychological effects begins to like stay with them, right? And we begin to help them also understand consequence, right? In chess, every move, let me give you a quick analogy. Like after the first 4 moves in the game of chess now, the number of ways that you could play out that position is more than the number of atoms in the universe. Like it's a mathematically infinite game. And with all these like plethora of options that you have at your disposal, you can only make one move at every turn. And after every move, there's a consequence. It's either good or bad. If it's good, the reward is that you'd win the game. If it's bad, you'd lose the game. So I think chess is one of the best ways to teach consequence, right? So we begin to like draw parallels from this to their lifestyle, right? To how, you need to think critically about the decisions that you make, because it will always branch out to something, right? And we teach these children the process of this. So in this process, you're teaching them not what to think exactly. You're teaching them how to think for themselves. And that is very powerful, right? Because children are very impressionable. Their minds are like this blank slate. So what you begin to, like the imprint you begin to leave on that stays with them, forms their conviction, forms their understanding, helps them develop like frameworks to begin to think about certain things. So that was why that boy was able to come to a place where he realized by himself that he shouldn't smoke para this morning because he needed a clear mind to be able to play at the highest level. So that is how like the process of like reforming minds, shifting mindset through our chess training program. Now the second phase is the rehabilitation, right? So we try to like take some data while we engage with the kids, like why they run away from home. Some of them are orphans these days, why they take drugs, how does it make them feel. So a lot of that we need to like outsource it to like or leverage partnerships for like professional help, professional consultation, right? For people that are well versed and trained, right, in helping, these children or these young people like be able to be vulnerable with their stories and with their thoughts, right? So we like have partners that help us take these children through that rehabilitation phase. And that rehabilitation is not just like the psychosocial support that they need, or psychological support that they need, right? But also like exposing them to people, like to different social interactions. A lot of the social interactions I've always known is that going to be slapping them very violently when they do anything, or cussing them out, or calling them very terrible names. So they're already used to that, and that has made them very, very hard, right? And like I said, a lot of the reasons why they take to the substance abuse is because they need to become harder than their reality, right? They need to become much harder than it. And else, they wouldn't survive. And on the street is the survival of the fittest. So some of them join cults to protect themselves and all of that. So social interactions, right? I remember even during the Shady project, we took them to Banana Island. The kids, like a billionaire friend of mine, like invited us to his house, and we took them and they sat in his house. They had lunch on the dining table for the first time. Like a lot of that I could see. Like I like to like observe them and how they they react to like new situations like that, how they try to fit in, how so a lot of this you begin to see that it changes them over time. They begin to see that there's a life that is better than this. Then finally reintegration, right? You've empowered them, you've taken them through that rehabilitation process, you've started exposing them to something that is better from like their status quo. Now how do we now reintegrate them back into society? Right? How do you reintegrate children that are falling through those cracks of society that don't necessarily fit? See a child that dropped out of school when he was in primary school, primary two, and now he's like 16. He doesn't fit into the conventional educational system again. So what is most meaningful for that child? Maybe a vocational learning school, training school. Right? So you begin to think about reintegration as an end-to-end thing, not just something that is one size fits all for all of them. So we integrate them, the ones that will go to shelter homes, the ones that can go back onto their parents. So this is like the process, for our intervention at Children Slums.
Thank you very much, Tunde, for your comprehensive response on that. Okay, we have quite a lot of people now on the speaker's corner. Let's try to give Adam Moloney seems to join us from somewhere in Europe. Adam, are you ready to talk now? Adam Moloney? If you are not ready.
I am here, thank you.
Adam.
Yes, hello. 2 seconds.
Okay. Go ahead, please. Yes. Go ahead, please, Adam. Adam, you are not ready. I'll take the next person. Are you ready? Please go ahead if you are.
Sports is very essential for every human life, which keeps them fit and physical strength. It has a great importance in each stage of life. It also improves the personality of people. Sports keep all organs alert and all hearts become stronger by a regular playing some kind of sports. What would you like to say?
Okay, Tunde, did you get that? I'm sure he's also re-emphasizing. Yeah, he's obviously re-emphasizing. Okay, Adam, would you want to repeat yourself so that our guests can respond to your remark or your reaction? Obviously, he was just trying to say what you have said earlier about the importance of sports as a tool, as an alternative to substance abuse. That's obviously what he said there. Okay, let's take the next person. Okay, I've seen. Why is Mrs. Asia? I granted her. Okay, she's disappeared. Okay, let's quickly take Dr. Kolo. Please go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, or good day, everyone, rather. Thank you, Dr. Babafemi, for giving me this opportunity. And I also want to sincerely thank Tunde for that wonderful presentation. You spoke very well. And I think I wish to be a very good presenter like you, maybe one day. Thank you so much. Now, your story is amazing. And your impact is incredible. You have actually used the game of chess to chase the crave for drugs out of the life of the young ones. And I'm particularly happy about that. But to me, the most interesting part of your story is when you follow your friends to the place you call Lungu, a drug joint, and you refuse to be influenced, but rather you influence your friends out of drugs. And this you were able to do using your skills and talents in chess. And I believe that this is a clear indication that if we all look inward, there is something inside of us, skill or talent, that we can use to bring people, especially the young ones, out of drug abuse. Presently, the NDLA is working towards the implementation of alternative development in Nigeria. And I'm happy that Mr. Para is here also, the zonal commander. We've been trying to put our ideas together over a period of time now. And we may request Dr. Babafemi to give us your contact so that we can be able to contact you and maybe get more ideas from you. This is just my little submission for now. Thank you, Dr. Babafemi, and thank you once again, Tunde, for that great presentation.
Okay, today would you want to react to that quickly before we go to the next person? Today, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, I can hear
Okay,
you.
please go ahead if you want to react to that.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. Okay, I think what you mentioned was like a possible collaboration or partnership, yeah? Or I don't know. Sorry, I was a little distracted just for a moment.
Collaboration, partnership. Okay.
Yes, all right, sir. No problem, sir. You can send us an email at hello@Chess in Slums Africa. We are open to like collaborating with other people, organizations like whose like vision aligns with ours. Or you can send me a personal email at Sunday@Chess in Slums Africa, or just send me a Twitter message. You know, yeah, on Twitter. So I'll be happy to like engage in a conversation to see what is possible.
Okay, please let me have your email address again.
Sunday@Chess in Slums Africa. Sunday@Chess in Slums Africa.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, not done. Thank you. Still part of the process of networking to solve society problems. Okay, let's take the next from Engineer Joshua Omale. Engineer Joshua Omale, let's hear from you quickly. Engineer Joshua Omale, are you ready for us? Or I'll go to Shuma Bala Ajiduku. Okay.
Good afternoon.
Okay, Engineer Omale. Okay, please go ahead, Engineer Omale.
Yeah, I'm Omale Joshua, calling from Kogi State. I have a little that I want to contribute on this discussion today. Before I start, I would like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity. Last week, I tried as much as possible to contribute and to share my own experience, and also to give a development to this of our future target. Thank you, sir. God bless you. You know, I'm a person that love generally from childhood, from the way they work in my community and the way they eradicate the level of drug abuse in my community. I became partner with them as an informant, showing the agency wherever any of the issues are taking place. And I have been person that puts engaged to say, okay, I stand still in the community to say, okay, from henceforth, no more selling drugs in the community, illicit drug in the community. And I start still till now. What we do in the community is to go into the spare group and mingle with them. Whenever they start taking those rehabilitating drugs, we start advising them that there's no gain in it. To now, so far so good, we are able to change so many lives and empower them, which will remove them from this habit. And we still thank God for their life today, and they are doing well. I just contributed because of the last caller that said, what can we do to reduce the level of drug in the society, drug abuse in the society? Henceforth, we have been applying to become an officer in this very agency, but not available because of the passion love we have in this agency. Like mostly in the community and other areas and all those things that are taking place. Whenever we see them, it pains us so much because we are seeing that they are taking the wrong part of it, and they don't have any other power and any means to force them out of it than to give them a counseling. I think whosoever that listen to this conversation, most of them will be an agency internal to be advising the youth of our generation, because illicit drug have become a priority and become rampant in the society, and they take it as fun. Why they forget about the effect of it. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Joshua Omale. As we speak, the NDLA is still recruiting. If you are interested and qualified, please feel free to be part of those that will be undergoing some screening tests for possible recruitment into the agency. NDLA, like we said last week, is an equal opportunity government agency. If you think you are qualified, please go ahead and be a part of the process. Thank you very much. Let's quickly let's take Shuma. Shuma, please go ahead and let's hear from you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, sir, for giving me the mic. Mine is more of a contribution. In as much as we advocate and encourage sports as an alternative activity to drug use, we should not forget that athletes fall under the category of people that are likely to use drugs to enhance their performances. So organizers of sport as an alternative to drug use, thank God that Tunde is mostly into board games. But those that will go into the field, maybe football or jogging, they are most likely to use drugs to enhance their performance. So when we are organizing this activity, we should always remind them of the why. Why are you doing this? Why are we doing this sport? It's not for you to go and, how would I put it now? It's not for you to go and win championship. There is no pressure whatsoever for you to want to take drugs to enhance your performance. It's just a way to keep you away from drugs. So people have to always know the why of the activity, the why of the activity. For example, using football as a means to keep you away from drugs. We will not want you to fall back to drug again so that you can play the football. So we always have to remind them, you are playing the football so you stay away from drugs. You are playing the football so you stay away from drugs. Thank you very much. That is all I have to say.
Thank you, Shuma. Would you want to say something to that?
Yes, thank you, Chima. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Clearly, like drugs is an enhancement for certain sports, like is almost another conversation entirely, right? But of course, people must always be reminded, the reason why they're doing this in the first place, and not compromise, because they need to achieve faster results, right? Excellence would always trump, like trying to just side cut and hasten like the process of success, right, in whatever sporting endeavor, right? So it's a lot more important to build proper capacity, both physically and mentally. So yes, I agree with you. Thank you for sharing.
All right, thank you very much for that. Let's get from you a full year of our time before we go to our DM. A full year of our time, please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Femi, Baba Femi. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to speak here. And to Mr. Tunde Onokoya, you are my sole mentor in this game, chess, because the very first time I come across you was on Twitter, seeing you under the Surulere Bridge. I think Surulere, I don't know. I don't know, Sha, you were teaching some guys, and this reminds me of how this can actually help the let me say non-privileged. You understand? But in this case, where we have chess to as an alternative to drug substance, I felt that in this situation actually, chess is a game that people doesn't see as a sport that could actually fetch them money. So they don't actually pay attention to it. 25% of Nigerians knows this game called chess, I would say, because if actually this chess of a thing is a game that is known as football, basketball, and all of that, I myself I would have been a true benefactor of chess. The story that you said about yourself, trying to know what the piece is, how carved the piece, like people play drafts in my face, but when I saw chess, the very first time I saw chess, I was very, very enticed. I want to know more about it. So the story you said about chess was very similar to mine, and I felt like if you are meeting this, the very first time I saw you, and I felt that if I'm meeting these people, actually, my conviction to them is, okay, come and learn this thing, and monetizing it will be the so-called priority for them. If they are not seeing money from it, they feel like there's no much importance of these shares to them. Do you understand me? This shares of a thing, I think we need to bring it to a level at which it becomes a sport that people do. But because of the hard way they learn chess, that's why people run away from it and all of that. Another thing is these drug abusers. They see drug as something that helps them to clear their head. That's what they see it as. And even some of them that I try to play chess with, some of them that knows about chess, that try to play chess, they say, let me take 2 puff, so that my head go fit see everything, I go fit see everything where they the chess very well. But at the same time, I used to tell them, hello, this chess, you don't even need to take this thing. I am the kind of person, when I have a problem and I want to solve it, I go to chess. I play chess for 20 minutes or 15 minutes online on chess.com to broaden my head. And I'm not to me, I'm seeing it as if, is there anything that I'm missing about this thing? You don't need to take this thing before you think. But I see chess as a complete way to broaden your knowledge or to open your head or your mind in thinking, rather than taking smoke. Though that is their own definition of taking the smoke. So with this, I think my own point of view is, how do we try to monetize this thing and make this shares of a thing important to them, and they see it as actually this is another thing to help us clear our head.
Thank you very much, Afuya. I think it's a straightforward question to Tunde to take on.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much for the kind words. I'm glad to know that you're also like a chess player yourself, right? I already spoke a bit about this, about how, like people just need guidance, right, in their learning endeavor, right? Maybe one way to really convince them, right, or one way to help them really understand the value of like learning chess or engaging, with a clear mind, right, is to help them understand that there's always like a reward for it, like for hard work. There's always like a reward for like giving maximum efforts to it, right? Now, chess can also be like a professional sport. It can be many things, right? In some hospitals in the US now, they use it as a way to help like patients like living with Alzheimer's, right? Because it grows dendrites and juggles like both sides of the brain, right? So it's an effective tool for therapy, right? For those patients, right? For me, it's a tool to like help children like that find their place in the world again. For some other people, it's a professional sport, like the masters that get to travel and compete all over the world. It's a globally universal game. Billionaires play it, peasants play it, right? People, it transcends every single barrier. Anyone can play chess and excel at it, right? For some others, it's just a fun activity, right? Right. So I find how, like, what it means to you and how it speaks to you, right? For like a lot of schools now, it's like an educational resource. In Armenia, chess is taught, is a part of that curriculum, right? From the kindergarten up onto university level, a compulsory part of that curriculum. They use it to teach like chess and how it intersects with mathematics and all of that, right? So I think the most important thing is to find where you belong in this. Not everyone will be a professional. Not everyone will get to like learn chess, in school as an educational resource. For some people, it's just so they can beat their friends and have like a hobby, an interesting hobby, right? That can help them, start developing like strategy. It can also be used as an important analogy to teach business strategy, war strategy, and all of that. So the first thing is to have that clear distinction, like, why am I even learning this in the first place, right? Because at the end of the day, too much of a good thing won't be good for long. And it doesn't matter how great something is, right? It can also have its negative sides to it, right? So what helps is to have like that clear understanding that, what should this mean to me? What does this mean to me, right? where's my place? Like, in what way do I want to wield this ability to play this game, right? For some people, it's just a way to meet others, right? For example, I have friends in over 60 countries in the world, and I've not been to more than 10 countries, just because we share the same passion. And, I've been able to get a lot of life-changing opportunities because of that. Just because we play chess and they're like people in high prominent places. So it's a lot of things, right? If you make them understand that, I think, and it helps them really think about why, the reason, and it helps them, gives them like the clarity they need to learn and to learn in the right way. So those are just my thoughts. I hope you find that helpful.
Thank you very much. Let's quickly take some 2 questions in our DM. Then I would invite 2 of my colleagues, M.I. Aminu and Ilya, to give us some updates on the recruitment exercise. While M.I. Aminu will give us an update on statistics. That's how many have applied or successfully applied, all those information details that will interest some of the people here. Ilya will give us how the portal is working, how the same information can be provided by M.I. Aminu. But before then, let's quickly take these 12 questions for today in our DM. Otoshi is asking, in a country like Nigeria, what is the sustainability plan for sports as a substitute for drug use with regards funding and access to resources for marginalized children? Let me take that again today, and I'd like to take another one in two. Now, Otoshi is asking, in a country like Nigeria, what is the sustainability plan for sports as a substitute for drug use with regards funding and access? Nigeria, what is the sustainability plan for sports as a substitute for drug use with regards funding and access of drug use? We are propelling them towards a susceptibility to drug use. How hope you got the two today?
Yes, I did.
Anyone you are not clear with, I can come over.
Okay, let me answer the first one. So in terms of like sustainability, like in the context of using it as a tool to help, rehabilitate like young people in impoverished conditions, no, I mean, if you want to change the world, right? If you want to do anything that changes people's life, right? Someone has to pay for it, right? Someone has to pay for it, right? You need to figure out how to pay for it. Some people are willing to pay for it with their time, their resource, their effort, and all of that. But then money is needed to change the world. So I think if more like corporate sponsors, corporate partners, a lot of like private institutions can like commit like their funding or their CSR activities to projects like this, I think it really go a long way, right? To help like with getting the required fund to sustain initiatives like this. And the reason why I'm saying this is because when we think about like people in poverty, or when we think about people in places like that, it's mostly as an afterthought, or we treat it as a charity case. So that's why you see people go to places like that and prefer to like throw spaghetti at them, or just do all sort of things, right? And then take pictures and tell false tales of impact, because that one is more. It's almost like it looks more like it's more tangible. It's something you can say, oh, we gave 1,000 people food items and all of that. So we treat them as a charity case by just like giving them handouts and taking pictures just for the optics, right? Just basic tokenism, right? So that is how a lot of times we think about people in poor places. But we forget that the most effective way to like empower people like that is by being very intentional about the kind of solutions that we want to prefer, the kind of interventions that we want to stage, right? Imagine like one of the biggest brands in the country like hosting like a tournament annually, like every year for street people, like street guys, and raise at like ₦1 million for first prize, something that comes with the excellent reward system, right? That is going to be like a product of their own hard work, something that they can earn, not something that is given to them as handouts. I go and distribute spaghetti, because that in itself is not sustainable, right? Because you're giving them spaghetti now, you're saying you've impacted their lives, right? What if they will go hungry tomorrow? So what happens, right? So I think the first thing is there has to be like a shift in like understanding like the way we approach problems, like for poor people, for people that have been marginalized, people in these impoverished, conditions, in these situations, right? To not just think of them as a charity case or a hopeless one or as an afterthought, but to actually be as creative in our ideas as just the same way we would like build our own business solutions, or the same way we build solutions that serve the middle class, right? We have to think about it the same way for the lower class, because if we don't give that level of intentionality to it, we just keep glossing over the problems, right? So it's like funding, a lot of funding, a lot of partnerships, a lot of collaborations, right? A lot of like intentionality, right, in seeing these things through to the very end. Imagine having like an academy for street kids, right? Not a correctional home, because the correctional home doesn't solve the problem. I can tell you for a fact that 90% of area boys on the streets right now, they've been to correctional homes at least twice in their lives. And you know what happens? They end up back on the streets again, right? So even like the term correctional home is not even, it doesn't even speak to like what we really need to do to like rehabilitate this kind of people, right? Even the name in itself already sounds weird, right? And this still comes back to what I said about like not thinking we can solve everything by brute force or by correcting people or by, all of that. No, it doesn't solve the problem, right? It only maybe temporarily solves it, but it is not sustainable, right? I can speak to what Church and Slum needs now to be able to build something truly revolutionary for the next 5 to 10 years, right? But for other initiatives, for other projects that we'll be coming up with, like, let us think about it with the same level of intentionality, right? To make sure that we can, like, sell our stories properly to people who have the capacity to help, right? Who have the capacity to give the kind of funding, right, to build the right kind of systems, right? So we begin to move from like individual heroics to a much more systems, to systems, points of like solving and staging our interventions, right? So these are just my thoughts anyway. I think it's mostly about like a change in mindset towards people like this, right? We must begin to forget the single story, right? We must begin to instead like focus more on what is possible, on the solutions, right? I think it will give us a clearer understanding of what we need to do to finally end this menace. Now to answer the second question about like leading people to sports where we are now making them susceptible to start using drugs as enhancement. People use this drug as enhancement for anything. It's not just sports. Like you'll be surprised, like at Wall Street, for example, like a lot of like the investment bankers and the analysts, they use drugs, like heavy drugs, even more than people on the street, right? So people use drugs for all sorts of reasons. So you saying like pushing people to sports could be a way to lead them to drugs. I don't think it's I even use that same if you use that same like scenario, like it applies to like everything else, right? So one thing I know sports does, it gives an alternative, it gives one like an alternative way of expressing themselves, right? And that is where you'd really discover that, people have this innate ability, but it hasn't found expression, right? Potential is innate, right? Just like in chess now, the pawn is the least valuable piece, right? But if it matches to the end of the board, the final rank, it becomes a queen, the most powerful piece on the chessboard, right? For a lot of people, they have this innate ability to do a lot of things, right? A lot of sports. And imagine if, like, Messi never got the opportunity to play football. Just imagine it. Like, just imagine a world where Messi wasn't a footballer, maybe he was a banker or something. Like, imagine a world that will never get to know that this person could be exceptional, excel at this thing, because he had this innate ability. Imagine if Barcelona never gave him that chance to find expression, right? We'll have missed out on this level of greatness, right? So that is the way I like to think about it, from a place of like potential that people have, and how we can bring that potential to full realization, right? Some of the greatest sports people in the world have eventually resorted to drugs, but for every one instance of that, there are 1,000 others that are actually genuine stories of people that have excelled at their sporting activity, right? So we can't like use like exceptions as the general rule. So those are my thoughts. Yeah, thank you.
Very well, thank you, Tunde. Juliet Shilaka, would you want to ask a question in just 20 seconds? Juliet Shilaka, you came in late. I hope if you are not ready, then I'll move over to...
Okay, sir. Good afternoon. My question is based on the recruitment. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask that now.
Please go ahead.
Okay, sir. So while I was registering, I'm actually a HND holder. So when I entered for the superintendent cadre, after registering, because I'll be 30 by October, the message popped up that I've passed the age limit for that. So I went back and chose the narcotic agent. So I want to know, will my qualification disqualify me from that? Because the qualifications I see for the narcotic agent is NCE and the rest.
Okay, thank you. Let me invite, your question is straightforward. Let me invite my colleague, Emma Aminu. If you had her, please, can you respond to that? Okay, go ahead, please. Yes, okay, please repeat your question again.
Okay, I said I'm a HND holder. When I try to apply,
hold on a second. Okay. Okay, come on again.
Okay, I said I'm a HND holder and I'll be 30 by October. So when I applied for the superintendent cadre, it said I've passed the age limit. So I went back and applied for the narcotic agent, and the qualifications I'm seeing is NCE and the rest. So I want to know if my qualification as a HND holder would disqualify me for the narcotic agent cadre or something because of the age.
Juliet, okay.
Okay, Juliet, did you say by October you'll be 30?
Yes.
And you applied for the superintendent cadre initially?
Yes.
And what did the system tell you?
It said I've passed the age limit for that position.
No, there's no way the system will tell you have passed the age limit, because the age limit for the superintendent cadre is 35.
Yes, I was wondering, maybe it's a network problem though.
Maybe network problem. And you mentioned that you went down to the narcotic agent cadre.
Yes.
You relegating yourself, because if you register in that cadre, obviously when you appear for the interview, you will not be considered as a graduate, because your initial registration status is what you'll be used. Is how you'll be treated during the screening exercise. So I would advise you to go back and do that registration. And I hope you've not submitted.
I have submitted.
No, because you cannot do multiple registration.
Yeah.
That's quite unfortunate. Okay.
So I can't come for the screening and explain.
Oh, who knows? When you're invited, you explain to the interview team, left for them to decide. So, I think it's a management decision. So just keep praying that you are invited for the screening. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right. I wish you good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Juliet. I think there was also another issue. I think somebody else also said he also mistakenly, even though he submitted his documents, he submitted his degree certificate, but that he mistakenly applied for NAS.
No.
So I said he can't go back.
Yeah, because this process is very straightforward. From the onset, you have three categories where you have to select from. So if you miss the road from the onset, obviously, I think you've gotten it wrong. Like I've said earlier, this is an issue we take note of, and it's left for the NDLA management to take a decision on it. But if you are using your hand to apply for something and you are making that kind of error, it tells a lot about your person, because the kind of job we are coming to do here in NDLA is a very delicate job that needs a lot of concentration and expertise. So that's a management issue that will be decided. Thank you.
Okay, then do we have some statistics now of registration?
Okay, thank you, Director Media and Advocacy. So far, the NDLA online registration process has been on for the past 3 weeks, with barely just a week to go. So as of today, 31st March, today Friday, 31st March, by afternoon, we had a total of 133,275 applicants that have successfully submitted the applications, with just about 1,263 that are yet to submit their applications for various reasons. So shows that we're making progress. I know we have complaints from the field, people having challenges here and there. I think that has to do partly to network problem, and our ICT team are always on standby day and night to address any issues that have been raised so far. So as at today, I've said we have 133,275. This with an increment of about 41,000 from last week to date. So it shows that we're gradually making progress. So we still have about a week to go. So all challenges are being looked at to make sure that we have a seamless exercise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma Aminu. Do we have Ilya there? What would you say about the portal at the moment?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Director Babafemi. The portal is up and running. Applicants are busy applying, and we are really receiving the applications. And one thing I will advise the applicants is that whenever they discover that the system is slow, they should try and change their browser or update their browser to new version, because that is what most of the people that are complaining, especially the applicant, they will say that the portal is too slow, but most of the time could be due to the browser they are using. I advise them to use the Google Chrome, or preferably they can use the Microsoft Edge. Or alternatively, they should update it to the lower version, the latest version of the browser they prefer. But I advise them they can use the Google Chrome, which is faster and seamless. So the portal is really up and running. That's the only challenge, that the only complaint that I really get from the general public, that is too slow. But I want to tell them that really people are busy applying, and they are successfully submitting their applications on daily basis.
All right, thank you very much, Ilya. Please stand by. I'm seeing a number of requests coming up now. I'm sure these are people that want to ask questions about the portal. So just stand by. Let's get more. By the way, let me employ our guest Tunde Onokoya to just in about 3 minutes time, we'll be inviting him to give his parting shot, his closing remarks. So just prepare for that. Let me quickly take some of these questions. I'm sure these people coming this hour, they are those that want to ask questions about the portal. Okay, let's hear from Leo Don Gabi. Leo Don Gabi, quickly unmute yourself and let's hear from you in 10 seconds, please.
All right. My name is Gabriel. Sorry, Mr. Tunde, before you leave, I would like to direct a question to you.
Please go
I
ahead.
came slightly to caught some of your points. So I would like to ask, in the way of curbing drugs in the society, have you also looked at industries like the music industry, the movie industry, because these are also some of places are used most of what they exhibit and they also take it to the public. So I don't know if there is also a plan to curb some of these things that are being exhibited by our public figures. So is there any plan or any means of public what we see on television and what we see on radio station and all? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabriel. Your question is taken. Let's get from Tunde now. We have barely 3 minutes so that we can free him. He's been with us for 2 solid hours now. So please, Tunde, if you get the question or you want me to repeat that for you.
I didn't hear anything that he said. I don't know if it's my network.
Well, what he was asking is commended the good work you are doing. Then he's saying there is within the entertainment industry, drug abuse is very ripe there, and whether it's also possible to deploy the game chess as a tool to also try to help some of those celebrities take them out of the drug scourge. That's just the summary of what he was asking.
Yes, yes. All right. Thank you very much. I mean, of course, chess can be an effective tool for anyone everywhere. Recently, I was reading an article on CNN about how chess is being used as like a tool, like for reintegration of prisoners, back into like, their communities, right? So a lot of like former ex-convicts that maybe have like been granted parole, right? They take to chess, and there's even this project that we're currently doing, a gift of chess for inmates in prison, and it has been very effective. Like, these are people that have killed, these are people that have committed a lot of terrible things. But last week I got a letter from one of them. It was a very personal letter, and these are like prisons in the US, right? And on how like chess has really really helped like change him, right? So it can be an effective tool for anyone. Now, maybe the way in the context of like maybe celebrities, maybe it would be good to have like for those that struggle with substance abuse and are open to like a solution, right? Are open to like exploring maybe something different from the conventional way. Chess can be a good way, right? It can be like we can like put it like a social gathering where maybe people that deal with drug problems like that, they can like come together, say every Friday, right, to like talk about like their struggle, just be vulnerable and also get to play chess and connect. I think something like that, if we can like, if we're isolated in our struggle against like drugs, it can sometimes be hard. But when we can share a lot of that journey and vulnerabilities with other people that have the same struggle, where we don't feel judged, I think it's a more effective way, right, of like getting through it together. So yes, it can be effective, and thank you. And on a final note, thank you very much, NDLEA, for having me on the space to share my story. And I hope for all the listeners, thank you for joining as well. I hope you took something valuable from this. It will really take like collective effort of all of us in our different capacities, right, to be able to influence the kind of change that we desire for our country, for our people, for our friends, and for everyone that we know as the struggle, right? Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Tunde Onankoya, who is a coach and founder of Shares in Slums Africa. He's been with us for 2 solid hours. Thank you for the great job. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the succinct responses that you have given to all of the questions and issues raised. Unfortunately, those who are still making requests, the time is past the hour of 5 when we normally draw the curtain. I will always employ us to come early so that we're not making requests when we are closing the program, the conversation. I'd like to thank Tunde Onokoya again for taking his time. We've been on this for some time. But then we finally there. We got that right this time around. Thank you. God bless you for what you are doing. I'm sure the NDLA would be finding you as a great partner to work with on this project. And I would like to appreciate that you're closing short. It will take a lot of collective efforts for us to get to where we're all trying to get to. That is solving the problem of drug abuse and illicit drug trafficking in our great country, Nigeria. We appreciate everyone who has been part of this today. Once again, thank you, Loretta. Thank you, Mrs. Asia Adamubio. Thank you, John Ogunjemi. He's been quiet today. Thank you, our own Parabawa. Thank you, Dr. Kolo, Bashir Ibrahim, and a whole lot of others. And like I said before, this is a recorded conversation, and any one of us can go back on our Twitter handle to listen to it again or reshare. It's also on our Facebook page at NDLA01. It's also on our Instagram and our YouTube account at NDLA_Nigeria. Any of us can go back and listen to all of this. Next Friday would have been another date, but then I'm aware that that's Easter Friday, which is most likely a public holiday, so we may not be able to come back on the space that day. But the next Friday, which is 14th, we'll be back with another issue. Before I close, let me quickly thank some of my colleagues that have been supporting from behind the scenes. Shidi, Mahmoud, thank you guys. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Dele. Thank you, Kumbi, Blessing, Val, Phil, Unsushima. Thank you, Sini. Thank you, Vina. Thank you, my colleagues, M.I. Aminu. Thank you, Ilya. Thank you, every one of you, for being supportive and for getting us to do this together again today until we come back on the same space on Friday, 14th April. I'm yours sincerely, Femi Baba Femi. Thank you. Do have a wonderful evening and a great weekend. And for those who still have questions, please come to our DM. We'll try as much as possible to take your questions. Thank you, guys. Bye for now. And over to you, Mahmoud, and the other members of the team.
Thank you very much, sir. And just as you rightly said, this brings us to the end of the program. For more information about the agency, you can visit our website, www.ndla.gov.ng, and our social media platforms at ndla_Nigeria on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And on Facebook, it is at ndla01. I remain Mahmoud Isa. Goodbye.
I can stop it, I can leave it all.
I can't stop it, oh, I can't leave it, oh, I lie. Rock go shopping my life. If I sit down, they do nothing. I don't go back until they want me.